It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. It's time to talk a little pro wrestling on Wrestling Inc. all across the internet, wherever you may be joining us. I am Justin LaBar coming to you from Pittsburgh. He is Jimmy Korderas coming to you from Toronto, Canada. Issa was with us, and then she slipped backstage again. So we'll. She did tell us she is in Puerto Rico. Still a lot of rain. Still power going in and out a little bit. So obviously at the moment she's doing her best to be with us. Yeah, so she actually just notified us power coming back up. So we'll get Issa join us when we can. But hello, everybody. Great to be with you tonight live. Again, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, wherever you may be watching, or if you're checking us out audio only, that is welcomed as well. And Jimmy, before we get going, AEW did the same thing. I don't know how many people in Florida even have the resources to even be watching or listening tonight or tomorrow. But thoughts are with them regardless. And if you are somebody who is dealing with the challenges of Hurricane Ian in Florida, and you do have the ability that you are watching this or listening to this, I hope we can provide you some distraction and entertainment for the next hour.
Absolutely, exactly. Truly, our thoughts and best wishes are with everybody down there. I know a lot of people probably have some friends or at least family down there. I know I have a lot of friends down there that are in Florida and some family members, and I've been in contact with them just to make sure that they're okay. And I don't want to bother them right now because they're dealing with a lot. But I told them to keep me posted, and I hope we honestly are thinking of all of you down there.
Yeah, and obviously, look, Florida. That's obviously, if you take the WWE and AEW rosters, easily more than 50%, probably closer to 75% of the talent base there. That's where they call home now. So that obviously just you think about talent, the raw talent that they were in Western Canada this past Monday. Obviously, AEW talent in Philadelphia tonight, and so they are in safe cities at the moment in terms of weather, but they have their loved ones that are back home, or they need to fly back to So it's definitely an added real life scare and pressure in what's already busy world of problems.
So absolutely.
So we will we'll keep the show fun. We'll have some fun. We'll like some stuff. We won't like some stuff. You'll agree. You'll disagree with us. But that's what it's all
exactly.
That's what it's all about.
As an old leather jacket wearing man used to say back in the day, exactamundo.
Exactamundo.
Yes.
Exactamundo. I think Issa is coming back up. There she is.
There we go.
Yeah. I'm back. I'm sorry. I lost power. Story of my life. For the last week and a half, that's been the story of my life. I lost power, but I'm back.
We were just saying, we told people that you were doing that challenge, and we were saying there might be people in Florida that don't even have the resources to watch or hear this, but if they do, we hope we can entertain and distract them.
Yeah.
Listen, it's Puerto Rico. Like the issues in Puerto Rico, don't get me started on that. It's not the storm, it's the actual power company. I could talk about this for a whole hour. However, like it doesn't matter. A tiny little wind goes by and we lose all power. And I told you before we went on the air, it's raining, so I'm not surprised. But let's see if we can make it through the next hour.
It'll be a game.
Yeah.
It'll be a game. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. Let's do some news first. Let's talk about Goldberg. How often we always say that. Let's talk about Goldberg. Goldberg was on WWE's The Bump. Yes, I know. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for the why to come in.
Do we really have to?
Well, I think this is worthwhile. I mean, he was talking about, basically in the conversation on The Bump, he gave an update, kind of inadvertently, onto his situation with WWE. He said, "I don't have any matches left on my contract, but I know one way we could take care of Roman Reigns. I do need to give him a little receipt for that little choke out in Saudi Arabia, but I think there are a number of superstars capable of dethroning him." So at the moment, at least, Goldberg, no more obligations. I would assume he's probably on still some, Legends deal that kind of continues to go on, but in terms of a active talent deal, no more matches or obligations to fill at the moment. Jimmy, do you think we've seen the last Goldberg match in WWE, or is Triple H going to dial up that phone in 6 months and say, "Hey, I need you for another Saudi Arabia match"?
I don't think. I think he's pretty much done with the in-ring portion, especially with that comment he made at the end where he says, "But there are a lot of other talents I think that can dethrone Roman Reigns." If he didn't throw that in there, I would have speculated that maybe he is coming back for one more or something like that. But at this time, I think he's pretty much happy with his career. I think he's pretty much done. And whether you were a fan of his or not, hey, you know what? He was a big name in this industry, and he's a Hall of Famer. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's the only Hall of Famer to hold a Universal Championship or something like that.
The Universal title, yeah, probably right now.
Okay.
For now, Issa, I know you're just counting down the days until we get an announcement of a Goldberg coming out of retirement match.
Stop. No, I'm not. Now, listen, if I had to say something positive, because I had a few drinks tonight, I will say I didn't mind seeing Goldberg in that match where he was in with Ziggler at that SummerSlam, that kind of exhibition match. You know, that's like just a quick squash. We get to see Goldberg, we see the spear, people pop for it. Fighting for championships, he doesn't need to be involved in that. And that's the part that I didn't like about this return run of Goldberg, when you were putting him in and he was beating people that could have probably used the push more than him. So if he's done, I'm not gonna be mad at that.
Yeah, I think he probably have seen the last match, and who's to say when they do the throwback Raws and throwback vintage shows, he doesn't show up and spear somebody. But yeah, I think especially again, Vince is still in charge, you know, and Goldberg's healthy, which he is for a guy in his 50s. Probably gets called upon again for Saudi Arabia and for the shows where they just need to fill the marquee. But Triple H seemingly not, I don't think is going to be going that direction. It feels like he is invested in building long term, making new stars, and so I think. He would rather probably see a Karrion Kross get elevated into a situation rather than, calling a Hall of Famer like Goldberg. So Interesting comments. Did not expect to get that piece of news here on a Wednesday, but we got it. Let's move over to somebody else. Bobby Fish, of course, formerly of NXT, most recently with AEW, now on Impact, but he was with AEW for a little bit, got to have a brief reunion with his Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly Undisputed Pals. It was out in the news here in the last few weeks that Fish, his AEW deal was not going to be renewed, that he was done with them. And there was a rumor kind of circulating out there that he was trying to get Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly to get out of AEW, especially once Triple H took over WWE. There was a rumor going out there. I mean, it made as far as, Jim Cornette even was, commenting on the speculation on his podcast. Well, just recently, Fish has now kind of responded to all this, and he kind of laughed, poked fun, sarcastically saying that after 25 years in the business, he doesn't know how contracts work. He was even disappointed that somebody like Cornette, who's obviously a longtime, promoter and manager in the business, would even, think that the speculation was even true. Fish says, I think that's what sucks the most about it, is that these people, they write this stuff. There's no checks and balances. There's no ramifications when you're wrong. Therefore, they continue to just write whatever it is that they're going to write, and it gets picked up by whomever, and then it becomes like the fact or fiction line really doesn't matter. So the whole thing is just absurd. So Bobby Fish at least saying that there is no truth to him trying to get the Undisputed back into Stanford. He said, do you believe him?
Maybe not. I feel like we just saw a similar story with Malachi Black, and I feel like unless some of these wrestlers, or maybe Tony Khan himself, is coming out and speaking clearly about how long these contracts are they renewed, are they not renewed, are these people being released, you are leaving the door open for people to speculate and report on that. So unless somebody's going to come out and clearly say what went on, why didn't you get renewed, then don't complain when people are reporting whatever they think happened, because you're leaving the door open for that. And maybe it's because we do this, right? I also have to stick out for the other end of the stick, but nobody's been clear about what's going on here. We saw it with Bobby Fish. We see it with Malachi Black, Buddy Matthews. They're posting things on their Instagram saying, I asked for my release, saying goodbye to crowds, and then saying, oh no, that's not what's going on. Then you are leaving the door open for people to speculate and report on that. There's nothing you can do. People they're going to report the news, and contract information is part of the news.
Jimmy, you think any truth to this, or is this Fish covering himself up, saying, "Oh no, it was just nothing. There's nothing here"?
I think it was maybe overly exaggerated in the reporting. Maybe he did have conversations with Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, and just, hey, listen, when your contract's up, maybe you want to think about other options than staying here. Things have changed over whatever it may have been a conversation between the two that somebody might have overheard and said, oh, he's trying to convince them to get out of their contracts and leave and blah blah blah. Maybe it was just an innocent conversation, them talking business, like talent does all the time, And as far as contracts go, my contract was different than theirs, so I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I can't speak to those certain things. I think we just lost Lisa again. But it is what it is, and I think there's a little bit of sometimes some in the wrestling journalism side like to take stories and run with them and just hope for clicks. But I don't know if that's the case in this part.
Yeah, real quick, Issa actually just sent a message to me. Said she's gonna call it a night. Probably gonna be a little tough on her and a little interrupting of the show with the power situation. So we wish her the best.
Yes,
but I back to the Bobby Fish. I think it's probably something close to what you just said, Jimmy, and that whether however it got. If there was any truth, however it got leaked, like I said, whether somebody overheard something, somebody whatever, or there was a passing joke in catering and somebody took the wrong way. I mean, I think it's kind of logical to think that there was probably some private conversation of you see people going back to, you see Triple H rehiring people that were let go in the last 2 years. You hear about better morale. You hear about AEW is getting very crowded. I think it's probably logical that Fish would have a private conversation with his friends and to say, well, are you guys happy here? Do you think, would you ever want to go back if they called? But I think to what he's kind of joking about is that I don't think that he would be as bold and brazen enough to be trying to broker a deal of where you would be meddling with contracts and you would be contract tampering or breach of contract. I don't think he was calling Triple H saying, hey, make a play to get Cole back. I don't think it was that deep. I think it was probably just friends, do you have 18 months left in your deal? Well, what do you think you're going to do in 18 months? Or, just so.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Super chat from Matt. The best part was my first watch along with Issa. Yeah, we hear those are pretty entertaining.
Yes.
She gets going during
That's
the
awesome.
shows. So
Cool.
Make sure you check those out. So that's where we're at with that. So Bobby Fish kind of having some fun with the wrestling world. All right, let's go ahead and jump into AEW Dynamite tonight. Jimmy coming from Philadelphia. Now that's kind of key for what we're going to see tonight for our main event. It is going to be another Ring of Honor crossover. We'll get to that. It's going to have Chris Jericho in the main event as the Ring of Honor champion, but he's also going to kick the show off with his Jericho Appreciation Society. They're coming out and he's the Ocho. They're wearing the purple. I don't know if this is a play on. I don't know if it's kind of a play off of the dodgeball because it's on ESPN, the Ocho, and there's the Ben Stiller's group is in the purple. I don't know, but they all come out matching purple outfits, looking ridiculous.
Right.
They get in the ring. They kind of take a little parody of Roman Reigns and WWE. They go AEW Galaxy, appreciate us. It's the Ocho celebration. They got pizzas, but they're not going to share any of the pizzas with the crowd. That upsets the crowd. Daniel Garcia's out there reluctantly. He gets gifted a bucket hat from Jericho. Garcia then basically says he's had enough. He starts to get ready to run, tell Jericho about himself and run his mouth. And Jericho tells him to think before he speaks. And are you a sports entertainer or are you a pro wrestler? That brings out Bryan Danielson. He says that Daniel Garcia can be whatever he wants. Daniel Garcia says he needs to be entertaining. He starts to throw out some ideas to the fans of would this be entertaining? And he ends with, what if I was a tag team partner of Bryan Danielson? Wouldn't that be entertaining? Big crowd pop. And they basically then challenge Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara to a match. And then things take a turn. Daddy Magic, Matt Menard, interrupts and just starts to then scream a promo at Daniel Garcia. And we get an impromptu match that gets made. It is Daddy Magic versus Bryan Danielson. Now we'll stop there. Jimmy, up to this point, we start with a promo, big promo, which AEW doesn't always do. And then that actually is going to then bring us on a unannounced, unadvertised match. Another thing AEW does not commonly do. How did you like the execution of all this?
The only thing I would have done differently is, yes, it was entertaining. It was a lot of fun. The crowd seemed to be into it. But at the same time, when they made the match, I would have gone to a commercial between the long promo segment. When the match was made, well, let's go to a commercial. When we come back, we will have the match between Daniel Bryan and Matt. You know what I mean? It flowed right into the match. It's like they showed a quick thing video, and all of a sudden the ring was all cleared out. It just, I don't know. I like it to feel like they needed to. It took some work to get the ring set up, and it took some work to get the ring back to match condition. You know what I mean? It just seemed too quick.
It was an awkward transition. It's similar to my complaint of Monday's opening on Raw. It was an awkward transition to get from the promo into the match with the ladies. And there was an awkward transition because you got to get the pieces and the balloons and all the celebration stuff out of there. And then a surprise, the JAS of the heels. Why did that all stay out there? But Menard's partner Angela Parker stayed out there.
Yes,
but the rest of them left, and I'm like, why?
Yeah,
unless the referee kicks you out, and if he kicks them out, why would the other partner still? So that was a little baffling in a way that the heels wouldn't take the advantage of having the numbers game.
Right.
But then my other question became, as I'm watching this match now between Matt Menard and Bryan Danielson, is why Matt Menard? And I asked this because he's coming off of an injury, which commentary notes it was I believe a shoulder injury from Blood and Guts. And boy, I thought, Jimmy, you could tell he looked like he was in pain out there. He moved slower and more awkward than I've seen him move in the past. It didn't. I'll be quite frank, and I mean it's hard to do with Bryan Danielson because he's so damn good. But this looked not good, and I just got me saying, why him? Why couldn't it have been his tag partner who does a spot with Claudio on the outside at one point, or why couldn't it have been Sammy? I just was kind of really baffled as to why they chose Matt Menard, the tag guy, to be in a singles when it clearly looks like he's not 100%.
No, that's a good question, and it's a good that you brought it up because it again, you know, things need to make sense for it to work. And again, this did not make sense to have Matt Menard come out there and challenge Daniel Bryan to a match or whatever. And like you said, you could tell he was having issues out there, and that is not good, especially for someone who. Let's say less than 100%. I get it. The old school tells you go out there and you perform, but at the same time, you have to think of your future as well. And also, if you can't, give it your all out there on television, on live television, then you're robbing not only yourself but the fans as well.
Well, yeah, and like if it's a thing, I mean, I think he was on Rampage last week. I mean, put him on a tape show so that way you can maybe edit some stuff and cover something. I mean, put him on the live show, put him on the live opening match in Philly. A whole thing I wasn't sure. Bryan ends up winning with his his crossface submission as I kind of figured. But yeah, there was some head scratching stuff here. I don't mind the Bryan Danielson, Daniel Garcia,
right.
And I like the story of Bryan's, like Daniel's, idol. He looks up to him as the best wrestler. I mean, that's all cool. And if you're turning Daniel Garcia face, who better to give a face rub than Bryan Danielson? But I question the match, all parts of it. They tell us MJF is going to be up next, but Wheeler Yuta comes stomping out. He's going to interrupt. Of course, Wheeler Yuta got attacked, had a war words with MJF the week prior, and got attacked. So Yuta's out there. He interrupts MJF's time. He cuts a promo on MJF, basically challenges him. He says MJF just hides, whether he's hiding behind the Inner Circle, the Pinnacle, the Firm, whether he hides behind a microphone, his suits. He just hides. He can't actually deal with what he needs, with what he starts. MJF then comes out, talks about how he hates Philly. Philly's the place where you live when you can't afford to live in New York. He does praise Wheeler Yuta's wrestling ability. Wheeler Yuta, of course, from Philly, so getting that hometown pop. He praises Wheeler's wrestling ability, talks about how they fought up and down North America on the independent scene. But in terms of why is he talking, why is he on a microphone, he has no charisma. So interesting comments there by MJF. And Wheeler starts to storm up to MJF on the stage, and then here comes the Gun Club. They come out and stop it, and basically MJF says, "I'll fight you, but not in the dump of Philly. I'll fight you next week in Dumpy DC." So we are going to get MJF's first. We're going to get him back in his first singles in-ring match in a while next week on the anniversary show in DC. Did Wheeler Yuta, and we have more of this later, but let's stick with what we saw here in this segment. Did Wheeler Yuta get elevated? What did you think of his promo? It's hard to stand in the same segment with MJF with a microphone. How did this come off to you?
That's the problem. It's hard to be when you have MJF in the same segment. That is usually what the comparison is to. But I will give Wheeler Yuta credit because he did up his game this week. I thought he showed a little more emotion. He looked like he cared, and I like that. But at the same time, the line that he used where he's going to leave his blood on
Broad Street,
I thought was a great line to use. And again, he showed a lot of emotion. I don't know if he's got me reeled in yet, but he's got me interested at least to see what happens next.
I agree to an extent. I felt that there was emotion, and I do like what we see later, which we'll get to when the time comes. I like the emotion, and you're right. There was a really quotable line. It still sounded like this was new territory for him. I don't know if he's found his voice necessarily, or if it's did he believe everything he was saying. It still felt a little forced, little he got a little rushed at times, but I do like the intent behind it. I am surprised. I understand trying to get the sympathy and the momentum for him, especially when tonight again he's dubbed from Philadelphia. But I'm kind of surprised they didn't opt to go with him performing in a match in Philly, and they're going to deflect it to DC.
Yeah, it is a little surprising because one of the big jokes about WWE is that never wrestle in your hometown because you'll never win. But it seems to be a little bit different in AEW. But take advantage of those situations, especially on a night like tonight, where at times the crowd seemed a little quieter than normal Wednesday nights, because usually on a Wednesday night, the crowd is into everything, and tonight they seemed more selective.
Yeah, they came up for certain things, but you're right, there were periods of lull. I wonder, this was again tonight's theme of Dynamite, a lot of things, more than I can recall any Dynamite recently, at least. AEW put on more segments, more matches that were unadvertised. Think of the times that we're going to talk about tonight that things transition into matches out of promos, and so I don't know if that I don't know if AEW's audience has become trained and conditioned, where they like knowing here's the 5 or 6 matches we're going to get tonight, and it's because AEW is very good about that. They will all week long tell you all the matches that are coming up on the next Dynamite and Rampage. So I don't know if that threw Philly for a loop, or if it was just the participants out there. I also don't know how much of the locker room was there or not there that was supposed to be there, because of course Tony Khan said everybody gets a free pass. They do whatever they got to do in relation to the crisis of the hurricane in Florida. So maybe this was a big show that was just rewritten, and that's why we got so much impromptu matches.
Yeah, it could be very much that. And hats off to Tony for giving the talent the option, and not only talent but crew. Yeah, anybody who couldn't make it. So you got to give the props for that too as well.
Stephen Marcachilli with a super chat. Do you see Cross being a bigger face or heel? I'm assuming he means carrying Cross. I mean, in my mind, I mean, I think he could be both. I think obviously he has the menacing heel appearance and persona right now, and the facials and the look. But I think he could also be one of those guys that he has that run, and he just becomes, as we've seen so many times, almost so scary and so much of a mystery that fans gravitate to him. I mean, we've seen that going back to the Undertaker, right? It's sometimes the Bray Wyatt, sometimes that which scares you, you're enticed to cheer for it.
No, absolutely. You kind of stole my thunder there, because I was thinking the same thing, that it's all in the presentation and how he is presented too, and the story being told. But I think that he has the ability to be the huge monster killer baby face, but also he can be that terrifying heel as well. He has that all in him. It's just that, again, it all depends on the presentation.
Yeah. And look, he's still, to the Raw or SmackDown audience, he's fairly new. Had obviously had a very weird, poor run for the few weeks he was on Raw before getting released. Right. So it's still a matter of kind of building credibility up to some people who didn't watch NXT, and it's always easier to start and get over first as a heel. And then once people are familiar with you, you can flick the switch and you can turn to the babyface side of the fence. And so put a hold there on Wheeler, Yuta, and MJF. We're not done for the night with what we get with them. But coming up next, it is an eliminator match where we have AEW champion Jon Moxley up against Juice Robinson, and Juice needs to beat Moxley in order to then get a title shot with Moxley, which I know you love. Judging by your face,
it shows.
Yeah. This is a video podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. No, it's just, what, we talk about them wanting to be a little bit different from WWE and present it more and one of the things that I complain about WWE is those championship, whatever you name the match, having to beat the champion in order to get a championship match makes absolutely no sense to me. If you beat a champion, then you should either be champion or, unless it's designated a non-title match, which I'm not a big fan of either. But to have to beat the champion in order to get a shot at the champion, to me, never made any sense. And regardless of any fancy name you put on this type of match.
Well, I mean, it never makes sense anywhere. It never makes sense all the times that WWE used to do it, but it's particularly peculiar in AEW when they have the rankings and the standings that they do, and they keep the records of, that's just. So this is his AEW debut. He is technically a free agent, as commentary notes. They do a nice job at least giving us some context to this match, so it doesn't come off completely random. They show some video that these gentlemen have met, and they continue to repeat the stat that since Jon Moxley has been Jon Moxley, since he's basically left the Dean Ambrose part of his career behind and came to AEW, where he's done New Japan and some other cross promotional stuff, that Juice Robinson is one of only 2 men who have gotten 2 victories over Moxley. So that at least kind of gave some context. Like, okay, maybe this guy does have a chance to beat Moxley tonight by hook or by crook and become the next #1 contender for the title. So I thought that was well done, at least by AEW, to put all that in perspective. Juice does jump him outside of the ring as soon as Moxley makes his way into the ringside area from the crowd. But ultimately, though, Moxley, he's going to get this cross arm bar, and immediately as he rears back, looking to rip the bicep, he gets the victory. After the match, Hangman Page comes down, stares down Moxley. All the while, MJF's been watching up in a luxury box, and as he's up there watching all this going on in the luxury box, he's cutting a promo saying, "It doesn't matter. I got this chip. I'm going to cash in when I'm ready." As he's running his mouth, Wheeler Yuta finds his way into the luxury box behind him and proceeds to beat him all over the place. I thought this a nice burst of energy, and again, like I said earlier, Wheeler, I don't know if he's found his voice. He had some good lines. Don't know if he found his voice, but physicality wise and energy wise, that feels like it's there.
Definitely upped his game this week in that department, and again, a little bit of a nice little teaser there. And I just hope it doesn't lead to one of those situations where I guess Hangman has the title opportunity because of winning that battle royal, if I'm not mistaken, and now so he gets his shot, and I didn't know this about the chip. Can it be cashed in at any time, similar to the Money in the Bank, or does it have to be a designated match? Because I know Tony Khan said he will sanction the match anytime that MJF wants it. But does that mean he could come down at any time? Like if let's say, for example, Jon Moxley has a physically grueling match against Hangman Adam Page, and here comes MJF to cash in. Can he do it like that? It still hasn't been clear.
And maybe that's on purpose, so that way they can write the rules when it comes time based on the situation.
There you go. There you go.
I mean,
call it out there.
why? I mean, why spell out all the rules when you can leave some areas of gray to make it fit for whatever situation you want, especially with all the audibles that AEW's had to call the last couple of weeks and months.
Yeah, and I thought a lot of this match took place outside the ring a little too much too, and it was. I get it. There was the biting and stuff like that, but it just seems like we see a little bit too much blood from Jon Moxley.
Yeah, that's certainly a debate that many fans have.
I don't, and just to be clear, it's not that I have an issue with blood. The less you see it, the more it means when you do, like anything else. You know what I mean? That's all. You don't need to see it every week.
So Juice Robinson will not be getting a title shot in DC next week against Jon Moxley, but Moxley, obviously his new reign, his 3rd reign, I believe, as AEW World Champion, continues on. Okay, up next, this was advertised as part of the show, at least the start of what happened here, and then it kind of tailed off into something different, is we get the first words from Saraya, who's now, of course, over in AEW. Of course, if you missed this last week, Saraya, formerly known as Paige in WWE. She comes out, she basically says that she's damaged but not broken. She's going to revolutionize this division. She then starts to call out some of the women in the division. Here comes some babyface ladies: Sky Blue, Athena, Willow Nightingale, Madison Rain, Toni Storm. She starts to put Saraya starts to put them over, putting over Storm particularly, and then interrupted by Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Rebel, and Penelope Ford. Britt says, "Oh, look, here's another shiny toy that we've seen come and we'll probably see go." Britt says how she's the face of the division, has stuck her neck out for this company. That's because she has a strong neck, and Saraya's neck will not be able to handle it. I'm paraphrasing, but taking a shot at, of course, Saraya's health issues she's had in the past. So before, and then we're going to transition to a match here in a minute, but let's talk here about Saraya. Obviously, again, very long career as Paige, a lot of ups and downs with that. How was this promo for you, Jimmy?
The promo was interesting, but she didn't really clarify what she's going to do. She said she's going to revolutionize the women's division, and it's going to be, great and all that stuff. But at the same time, it almost felt like she is not going to be an active participant, at least yet, because, like you said, getting to the match, the one thing she did say is that she talked to Tony and to make this match happen. You know what I mean? And that sort of stuff. So is she going to be the kind of like the authority figure for the women's division kind of thing? Is she going to be the, I don't want to say GM, but the,
she's kind of like the GM of that division, the overseer of the division. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously she did that briefly in WWE, which wasn't fun. Corey Pride, the super chat saying she's a manager ? I don't believe she's wrestling. Well, so a few things to that. So she is on the website. She is, I believe, now listed with a record of 0-0. That's interesting. Fightful Select had a report out basically saying that she's signed for 3 years and that it's an amount of money that seems like it would be hard to believe that they would sign somebody for that amount of money if they're not going to wrestle occasionally. Doesn't mean she's going to necessarily be doing every weekend, which I kind of tend to believe too. It's like if you're going to put kind of the pay her what she probably could ask for, you got to think that you've gotten the medical okay that she could wrestle against some, that she could
right.
Maybe you work out. Okay, it's only going to be 4 matches a year. I don't know. But if she truly is just, but then Jimmy, we transition into what ends up becoming a lumberjack match between Serena Deeb and Toni Storm. All the women stay out there except for Saraya. She goes up to the commentary table, so she's not even going to be in the. She's taking herself out of the situation to even be physical.
Right, which leads me to believe that is she going to be that authority figure in the women's division who, like you said, occasionally has a match when things get out of hand or there's a big dispute or something like that. And it's interesting that that during commentary, Taz alluded to it as a Lumberjills match, and she took exception to it. So no, this is a lumberjack match. So I have a solution. Maybe you can call it a lumberjackalin match.
Well, she also let's not I guess we shouldn't gloss over the other comment when she was talking about how she's going to make this match of Serena Deeb and Toni Storm into a lumberjack match. She said that she talked to Tony, and I got a boss that listens to me after having for years a boss that doesn't listen to me. And of course that gets the pop.
Of course. Yeah, because it feeds right into that core audience's wheelhouse. And that just, you want to get that like you said, that moment. Obviously you take a shot at the other guys, and that's what she did. And again, sometimes it looks like the grass is always greener on the other side. And as we're finding out, it seems like, and we talked about earlier, it seems like more people are finding out that, hey, grass is grass wherever you go.
Well, and that there's a lot of people standing on that grass. It's a crowded yard.
Now. Exactly.
Not always a lot of grass to have here. So we get Serena Deeb versus Toni Storm lumberjack match. Deeb does kick out of a Storm Zero pile driver. It looks pretty brutal, and I wondered why does she kick out of that? Well, it's only because they're going to up the ante, and the finish is going to be an avalanche pile driver off the second rope. Toni Storm is your winner here. So Toni Storm, I thought a pretty good showing for her against somebody and a veteran in Serena Deeb.
No, she looked pretty good. It wasn't a bad match. I didn't like her kicking out of her finish and having to up the ante, like you said. But at the same time, it showed some, a little intuitiveness and some evolving the finish, I guess maybe that, but it's one of those moves where you can't pull it out every week, what
right? I mean?
Yeah,
it's like the okay, I'm gonna innovate and take my pile driver to the next level, but it's only for like the big time. It's only for the for the big opponents or the matches that call upon it.
Exactly. And still, I'm having issues with this interim championship designation. Look, you're the champion, and when the former champion who can't wrestle right now comes back, they're automatically in line for a title shot. to regain their championship. That's all. Simple.
Something else to note is the commentary. As we said, Regal's on commentary often when the Blackpool Combat Club's out there. Saraya's on commentary for this. No Jim Ross again for Dynamite. Now, I know he's been doing some Rampage. This is kind of interesting, Jimmy, that I believe since All Out, it's been like this. The JR is just not, before leading up to All Out, he was doing, they transitioned to where he would come on the second hour of Dynamite to kind of like, reset and re-energize that second hour, but hasn't been doing Dynamite at all. A bunch of things went through my head. Like, is it to try to like give a little rub to make Rampage a little more special? That's the only place you get to hear JR doing commentary right now for AEW. Rampage is also taped. Do they not want him on a live show? A lot of things. I'm kind of curious about why they've decided to do this with Jim Ross and put him on the show that gets half the viewership of Dynamite.
No, that is curious. Like tonight. You can excuse it tonight because if I'm not mistaken, JR is now living in Jacksonville. So, yeah.
But that's the thing. He's in Philly. He went to Philly.
Oh, he did go to Philly. Okay, then part
of what I made the comment. I wrote it down because on social he was
okay, I missed that.
He went to Philly because then he was saying, I got to Philly, I'm safe, but now I'm wondering how the hell I'm gonna get back.
Right.
But I think he's going to be on Rampage. I assume that's why he's in Philly. But it's like that. That's what it's been for the last few weeks. Is he's not been on Dynamite, and I'm just like. That's interesting to do.
I just hope it's not and I hate to use this term punishment because he has been, on his podcast and stuff like that, he has been a little bit critiquing, honestly.
Well, and even on Dynamite, sometimes he
take shots.
The referee has no control. Or he'll go a little bit, or God forbid, he slips and says he calls Claudio Cesaro or something. That's why I said, like, is it a thing of let's put him on a tape show where we can
edit?
I don't. I mean, I don't know. But I mean, or is it because Rampage does do half the viewership is Dynamite? Is that the reason you're trying to put him over there to try to? But is a play-by-play guy really gonna?
That's probably the reason they gave JR at least for moving him over there. But I'm thinking that it's what you were saying, that maybe they're having a little bit of issues with some of his commentary, and maybe that's it. And people. Would he draw an audience over there, or at least having him on there gives the perception that the show is
perception? Yes, but yes. I don't think if Dynamite's doing 500,000 viewers or 400,000, and you're trying to get it closer to 1 million, if Rampage is doing 400, 500,000, and you're trying to get it closer to Dynamite level to 1 million, love JR. I don't think Jim Ross is going to get several 100,000 people to all of a sudden tune in at 10 o'clock on Friday night.
Exactly.
So, but maybe perception is that when you tune in, I'm hearing Jim Ross. That's a classic, legendary Hall of Fame voice. But
right,
I don't know. It's just interesting. Tonight it's excused because, like I said, you have Regal out there several times. Saraya is out there. Ian from Ring of Honor's out there on the last match. I mean, the commentary desk. It was like that. It's like that Naked Gun movie when they're at the baseball game and they got 8 or 9 commentators.
Right.
Dick Vitale and. I don't know.
Yeah. Classic movie, by the way. Anyway.
Absolutely. Ricky Starks gets a quick squash against Eli Isom.
Okay.
This is just wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am.
I guess nothing more to be said at this time. It was just a classic enhancement match. That's all.
Very classic. Quick and classic.
Yeah.
All right, up next, it is main event time. We have a Ring of Honor champion and Chris Jericho up against Bandito. Fourth generation wrestler is Bandito. Also noted that he's the 34th Ring of Honor champion in history. Jericho is currently the 37th. So kind of setting the stage here. Bandito, again, a former champion, never actually lost the title, had to vacate it. So, again, same as with the Mox Juice Robinson match. Good context given here for people for a match that involves one of the participants is not a regular regular scene on AEW programming, and of course this is a Ring of Honor match, so it's not even AEW sanctioned belts and match. So a good job trying to give the context. They're in Philadelphia, the birthplace of Ring of Honor, so I get all that, and I've been a little critical in the past when they put the Ring of Honor stuff as their main event. But I got to say, Jimmy, I was a little critical going into it. I wanted to see, but I think this main event, I think as a whole, for all the business that was accomplished all the way up to the final seconds of the broadcast, I thought was a good choice. Let's dive into it.
Okay.
Jericho immediately mocks the code of honor, starts to do a goofy handshake, then flips Bandito the bird. That would kind of that kind of sets up for what we're going to find out from Jericho later. But I thought a nice way to start, got some good heat. Of course, commentary is putting over how disrespectful that is. Bandito really gets people cooking and up on their feet and on his side with a spot where he does a standing vertical suplex. He starts counting and then eventually lets the crowd take over. Over a minute, he holds Jericho up there. Blood rushing to the head, as commentary notes. That was a big spot that really, really, really got the people cheering. And thank God they were, because them cheering and making noise allowed for both guys just to stay down for a little bit and catch their breath. And in Jericho's case, let the blood drain back down a little.
Yes, into his body.
Big spot, though. Big spot.
Yeah, huge spot. And I got to tell you, maybe Jericho has been hanging around with Billy Gunn lately because, Jericho seems to have found the fountain of youth, and he took some big bumps in this match that, if I'm not mistaken, he took a Hurricanrana to the outside.
Yes, he did.
And stuff like that. So, hats off to Jericho for putting on some great matches. And he just doesn't do big moves. There's always context to everything he does.
Well, and there's a reason why he has been around. It's crazy. Bandito was born in 1995. Chris Jericho was setting ECW and New Japan on fire.
Right.
In 1995.
And I was traveling up and down the roads with Tony Chimmel and Mike Chioda.
There you go.
In the ring truck.
Yeah, I mean, but Jericho does not get hurt. Knock on wood. He does not have any major injuries. He's been extremely durable, and I think a lot of that's because he works smart. He is very careful about what he does and how he does it and who he does it with. And I thought he took some moves tonight. He also, another one that was a big moment for the crowd was this moonsault fall away slam from the top rope that Bandito does to Jericho. This was towards the tail end of the match. Both guys did look a little winded. They've been going for 15, 20 minutes. I was a little nervous as Bandito was trying to get Jericho into position. I was like, oh, this is scary. Yeah. But he pulled it off. And boy, again, the crowd really, really let him hear it.
Yeah.
And so you see all these big moments, mainly by Bandito. And he even, at one point he gets locked in the walls of Jericho, but he gets out of it, gets to the rope. So then he has these big spots. So a lot of momentum's going for Bandito, who is fighting hard. And then Jericho, just a rake in the eyes on the mask, pulls the mask down, and then proceeds to get him into the lion tamer, that more vertical version of the Boston Crab.
Right.
And that's going to get the victory for him. So Jericho wins, retains his Ring of Honor title, then proceeds to cut a promo that this is the Ring of Jericho era. He is going to destroy Ring of Honor's legacy. He hates everything it stands for. He's going to destroy all the champions that have been in Ring of Honor, starting with Bryan Danielson, who he challenges to a match on Dynamite in Toronto in a few weeks, and then proceeds to say, I'm going to destroy champions. I'm going to destroy the legacy. I'm going to destroy referees. I'm going to destroy Ring of Honor commentary. I'm even going to destroy Ring of Honor ring announcers. And he hits Bobby Cruz with a Judas effect. So now we know, it kind of puts some context of mocking that code of honor. And it gives us some story, Jimmy, now of he's the world champion of Ring of Honor, but he only has the belt because he wants to just destroy everything it stands for. Do you buy that?
Well, I buy it from Chris Jericho because Chris Jericho is someone who can make this story work, and he's a master at doing it. And he's off to a good start with the code of honor stuff, the little things at the beginning, and then taking out Bobby Cruz, who has been a fixture there in a long time. Next, I'm going to feel sorry because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Paul Turner might be next as far as referees go. At least maybe Paul Turner is going to be the one who referees the match here in Toronto against Bryan Danielson. I almost did it. See how easy it is. And he takes him out there and he starts. He wants his legacy to be, that of the greatest sports entertainer of all time, which is the phrase that gets so much heat with that audience.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I do think when I turned the TV off and I walked away, I did say to myself, I bet you Jericho had a big hand, if not all the hand, in coming up with this and saying, okay, Tony, if I'm going to be the Ring of Honor champion, we got to have a purpose here.
Right.
And so this is, I really do. I do believe that. I still wonder though, like, again, what's the long-term game with owning all the Ring of Honor property and rights? And again, it's more, guys that you got to pay for a match, and Bandito's not on your regular AEW roster, but now that
Yeah.
if he's on the Ring of Honor roster, it's just more guys you got to pay.
Mhm.
I just wonder what's the long-term goal. Are they going to get their own TV deal, their own streaming deal, something? I just really wonder what this ultimately leads to. And maybe
Right.
they know that already, and maybe that's what this is going to ultimately lead to as a payoff is on the first big, we've seen pay-per-views, but on the first big Ring of Honor weekly show, maybe that's where Jericho finally loses, that drops this world title after this run of trying to destroy it. I don't know, but I'm still wondering what is the long game here.
Yeah, I think right now, I think the goal. I understand that people are saying that streaming and online is the wave of the future, but right now the money is in television, and that's I think the big goal for them right now is to get a television deal with anybody, even if it's a syndicated, weekly show that they can get on for an hour. And they do the tapings for Rampage a lot of times on the Wednesday night. When I was with WWE, regardless of whether it was SmackDown or Raw, we always did a main event or Sunday Night Heat or something else, taped prior to going live. So it's easy to get a few matches in there. I mean, they get all the stuff for dark,
right,
and all that stuff. So it'd be just as easy to get an hour for a syndicated show, and it doesn't have to be more than like 4 matches.
Well, and I will say too, again, it's nice that like Jericho is the perfect. I mean, like doing the sports entertainment stuff. This really resonates. I mean, obviously, Ring of Honor was built again on being the complete opposite of what the business. When Ring of Honor launched in the early part of this century, it was the exact opposite of where WWE's product was, and where and they are the industry leader. So. It makes sense to have Jericho, who is so synonymous with WWE and sports entertainment. This does work, and I guess you can double dip. You can have him, out there doing an AEW segment to open up, where he's got Daniel Garcia out there, but then he can transition and make it an ROH segment. So I will say this does at least serve the masters. If Tony Khan's going to have all of this, tonight was a good job serving both masters.
Yeah, and the other thing, like you said, at first going into this thinking, why the main event of the AEW show is going to be the ROH championship when you have your own champion on the show as well. But Jericho at the end with that promo and his intentions for the ROH and ROH championship made sense as to why this went on last.
Yeah,
he made it work.
They did. Yeah, I was happy with how this whole thing executed, and the promo just topped it off. It kind of gave more context to everything going on. So that was Dynamite tonight from Philadelphia. Again, they're doing Rampage right now as we speak. So if you do want spoilers for Rampage, I'm sure you can go to Wrestling Inc. by tomorrow morning, and spoilers are there if you want them. Jimmy avoids spoilers.
I do. I like to, if I'm going to watch it, I like to watch it without knowing what's happening ahead of time. Unfortunately, when I was refereeing, I knew what was going to happen, but hey, it's part of the gig.
Part of the gig. You knew what was happening. So that was Dynamite. So we'll see. Again, coming up, they're in DC next week. That's where the first Dynamite came from. That's where they're going to be. So you're going to have MJF in action against Wheeler Yuta. We assume Moxley's going to be in action. I don't think we know who against who. But a lot of things to keep an eye out for.
The acclaimed have an open contract set up.
I think that's on Rampage this Friday.
Okay, so I'm mistaken, but I like you mentioned,
but it's National Scissor Day.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what you got.
Love that.
That's what you got. Nice. National Scissor Day.
Yeah.
Man, how
because he's got 2 words for you.
How over is the Acclaimed, man?
That's incredible. Good for them. Good for them, and especially good young tag team. Awesome.
And it's like the pop they get, and it's so appropriate that they have Billy Gunn out there as part of the presentation, because their formula is so closely mirrored to the formula they got the New Age Outlaws over, which is they'll give you a match. It's perfectly fine. They're not but it's like that's the part you care almost the least about. It's when you hear that first riff of the music, and then you want to hear what words are they going to say on the microphone, and you want to feel a part of something by being part of the catchphrases, by wearing the shirt or doing the scissor thing. It's like that's what it's all about, is making the crowd feel like they're part of something, and the Acclaimed has just tapped into that right now.
Exactly, and it showed. Like last week when they won the championship, it was incredible, the pop.
Yeah, it really was. It was. I didn't watch the show live. Obviously, I wasn't on the podcast last week, but I did, of course, go back, and I was yeah, that was even just watching it, and I kind of already knew what was going to happen because
it's a good time to be a wrestling fan,
Yeah.
and people say, well, you guys critique this and critique that. Well, we critique it because that's what we're here to do. We give our analysis on all angles. We tell you what we liked. We tell you what we didn't think was as good. But at the same time, I think right now is a great time to be a wrestling fan. Enjoy it all, whether it's AEW, WWE, Impact Wrestling's on a bit of a roll right now. So, yeah. Good time to be a fan.
Absolutely is. It and it trickles down. It trickles down to podcasts and things that everybody benefits. All right, that's going to do it. Jimmy, give some plugs. Plug away.
You can catch me right here at Jimmy Korderas. On Wrestling Inc. on Mondays and Wednesday nights. We got Triple J on Mondays with myself, Justin, and Jack Farmer, and on Wednesdays usually Issa joins us, but of course she's having some technical difficulties this week, and it's understandable. So we wish her all the best down there in Puerto Rico. And you can catch me in my Ref and Rants daily on all my social media platforms. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, Monday's Triple J. Wednesday is a Double J plus a Demon Diva.
Yes.
I'm at Justin LaBar across all the platforms. Go hit the follow button. As always, tweet both of us. Let us know where in the world you are watching or listening to this podcast. Normally Friday mornings you can find me on SiriusXM on Busted Open with Dave LaGreca and Thunder Rosa or Tommy Dreamer or Mark Henry, whomever it might be. Whoever's there, whoever checks in. So follow me, follow all the good stuff. Again, I'll be back Monday with Jimmy and Jack. Like, share, comment. Again, if anybody from Florida gets to hear or see this live or after the fact, wishing the best to you. Be safe. That's all we can say. Scary times.
Yes.
Down there with the weather. So thanks to all of you in the chat. We appreciate it. Super chats always appreciated. In addition to the great chat room just going on and being part of the show. It's great. The link goes out for this podcast on YouTube a few hours before we even start, and people are in there all evening long having like their own watch party. So very cool. Very cool. It's what it's all about. All right, Jimmy, I will talk to you on Monday. Everybody be good. We'll be back.